Thank you, Carolyn. You indeed are a blessing to the world. Well, today we're going to continue to explore our 12 spiritual powers and how they can assist us in living our 2025 intention. Now, last week we heard how Unity's co-founder Charles Fillmore created this system, assigning each spiritual power to a particular apostle and to an area of the body. Today you were given a list of spiritual powers that contains that expanded teaching. Okay. If anyone did not get that, okay, great. So just a one page like this, all right? Great. And if you're watching online, if you go to the home page where we talk about today's talk, you just click and you'll be able to open up this document or download it. Okay. So we have these 12 spiritual powers that are always available and unlimited: faith, strength, wisdom, love, power, imagination, understanding, will, order and zeal, elimination, and life. And on your list, the 12 powers are in the order that Mr. Fillmore put them, as it mirrors the order in which Jesus called the apostles to his ministry. Each apostle represents a spiritual power attribute of God that certainly resided in Jesus, and so it certainly resides in you. While these 12 spiritual powers or faculties are always present and available, they exist only in potential. We have to recognize them. We have to call them into action. Now, through our lives, we have used these 12 powers. We just haven't used them in a spiritual sense. We've used them in the very human sense. So that faith, we put our faith in a person, a thing. Okay. Now, you're looking at these 12 spiritual powers from a spiritual perspective. So as Jesus called the 12 to work with him in his ministry, so your inner Christ can call the 12 to serve you or to work with you in expressing your divine powers. A life where you show up as the very expression of God, where you shine your light in the world. Now, we seem to want to make this task, if you want to call it a task, or this calling, we seem to want to make this calling of our spiritual powers difficult. And I don't know why. Okay? Because it's actually fairly simple. You know, I personally think of my 12 powers are like my 12 assistants that are ready to rush to my help whenever I call them, whenever I bring them to mind. And they're not like, what do you want me to do, or where should I go, or no, they know exactly what to do. And I just need to call them into action. To Fillmore, the development of the 12 powers was clearly a spiritual activity. So we know that everything begins within. So our spiritual discernment, understanding, or calling of the 12 powers will always come before an expression out here. Your 2025 intention can be brought into expression with the support of one or two or many of your 12 spiritual powers. But first, you must spend time in prayer and silence, reflective, in order to call them into action. And here's the wonderful idea, if you can get hold of it, that these 12 spiritual powers are so powerful that when Jesus employed them in his ministry, people thought he was God. Now, you also need to know and remember that before Jesus started his ministry, he spent 40 days and 40 nights in the desert. He spent that time battling his ego, his greed, his selfishness. What we call metaphysically the devil. And when he had spent his time in prayer and silence, he left the desert, called his 12 apostles to him, and set out to help everyone live an abundant life. So as you spend time in prayer or affirming your oneness with the divine creative process that we call God, you are raising up your consciousness to a point where you very likely will be in alignment with this divine creative process that has one desire. And that one desire is to be a co-creator with you. And guess what? You're going to get tongues a-wagging. Yes, they're going to be saying, wow, what's going on with her? Oh my goodness, he certainly is walking taller, more confidently. You know, he is really showing his strength. My goodness, look at how courageously she's taking on that challenge. He is so full of loving kindness. So just like Jesus got tongues a-wagging, you too can do that. And maybe, just maybe, they'll think that you're a god. Maybe. But at the very least, you know what you could be mistaken for? Is one of those Marvel action heroes, you know, maybe that. So now let's get into these 12 powers and how we can use them spiritually in order to create the life that we desire and we deserve. Last week we discussed that Mr. Fillmore advised us to always include the spiritual power of love in the calling up of our powers. Divine love, now remember, divine love is a bit different than romantic love. You know, the love that we see in Hallmark movies and greeting cards. And so if you remember, he wrote that divine love is impersonal. It loves for the sake of loving. It is not concerned with what or who it loves, nor with a return of love. Love is the pure essence of being, the pure essence of God that binds together the whole human family. And of all the attributes of God, love is undoubtedly the most beautiful. In divine mind, that's in God, love is the power that joins and binds in divine harmony the universe and everything in it. It's the great harmonizing principle, the God glue in the universe. So I'm going to come down and we're going to have a little talk. That's what I'm looking for. So last week, we examined intentions that we would like our best friend to have. Okay? Didn't have anything to do with us. Our best friend. And we thought about, does the spiritual power of love assist that intention to come into expression? And we had lots of different intentions, and they all seemed that they could have been helped along the way with divine love. But divine love can get a bit wonky. Okay? When you are expressing love, now it starts from within, but then it filters through you and comes out here. So what are some of the ways that love might look wonky? If you think of love going a little off, a little awry, what could that look like? Anybody ever been jealous? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, jealousy. What else? Envy. Codependence. Controlling, absolutely. Possessiveness. Manipulation. Lust. Yeah. So, so there's all kinds of ways where love can go a little wonky, stalking, So there's lots of ways that it can just not quite be as it was originally intended. So oftentimes when we're looking at the 12 powers, we say, well, is there another spiritual power that I could match this up with to maybe help this divine love not get wonky? And I said there would be a prize if someone could tell me what that spiritual power is. Leah. Close. Very, very close. What else? Kat. There, I knew she had it too. Someone over here said it too. Wisdom. Wisdom. Now let's look at wisdom. You got your list? Wisdom is right before love. Now, love is the Apostle John. Who's his brother? James, who represents wisdom. Jesus often called these two sons of thunder because they were so outspoken, so fiery. And these two work really well together because wisdom, where understanding could be knowledge, wisdom is applied knowledge. Okay. Wisdom, it says here, judgment, discernment, intuition, right? And intuition is the best spiritual expression of wisdom. But we also have judgment, and we've heard that say, judge rightly. Right? Judge rightly. And so that's really talking about being in integrity. Would you say, let your conscience be your guide? That's judging rightly. That's judgment. Or it's also a sense of knowing. Because discernment is that choosing, right? That evaluating. So that when love wants to get a little wonky, wisdom comes in and says, now let's think about that a little bit more. Let's make a better judgment here. Let's bring some discernment to this. Okay? And so wisdom can help love stay more in that lane of divine love. So, and it's interesting if you go to the first two, right above that, we have faith and strength. And again, we have two brothers. Peter and Andrew are brothers. Okay. So, anybody in this room at any point in your life were fearful or worried about something that you later found out you really didn't need to be worried or fearful about? Yeah. Okay. So I hear from people, well, I just needed more faith. No, you didn't. You have all the faith you could ever use. It's unlimited. It's always available. So what were you missing? You're missing strength. Strength is the brother of faith. And if we also remember when Jesus said, Peter, you are the rock. Well, in order for faith to be a rock, to be grounded, you need strength. Strength provides that perseverance, right? That courage. It's not this type of strength, okay? It's strength within. It's, we say, keep the faith. Have the strength to keep the faith. And so that is that we have stability, courage, and tenacity, right? So that If anyone has down faith, I want to experience more faith in 2025. Put down strength with that. Put down strength. So I want to ask if anyone has considered imagination. Oh, that would be something I'd want to put down. Imagination to help me get my intention. Because often we say, I can't imagine what that would be like, you know? So, imagination. The thing with imagination is it takes place up here, right? Imagination is up here. So anybody like to daydream? Yeah. I love to daydream. I used to get in trouble at school for daydreaming. I thought it was a wonderful thing to do. They were not so impressed. So imagination, it happens up here. And you can bring all kinds of things to your mind. Right? And if you look at imagination on your list, I love the fact where it says what part of the body it's in, it represents. Yeah. Come on, where are my Italians here? Yeah. Right here, that third eye. Imagination. So how do you get all those lovely daydreams to become reality? Because imagination on its own is not going to do it. You'll just keep your head in the clouds. Yeah. Consider the spiritual power of will. Will, they call it the executive function. Will. That's the doer. Power is another doer. But we have will moves into action all the other powers. Well, I just don't have the will to do that. I wish I had more willpower. Did you ever hear that? Willpower? Yeah. It's also about commitment. What might you need to keep that intention for 2025? You might need to make a commitment. If you have problems making commitments, that might be a good spiritual power for you. So does anyone have put down or thought about employing a spiritual power that we haven't yet talked about? Yes? What spiritual power? Life. Yes. Life is an interesting one. And you see it's Judas, right? And you're saying, well, that doesn't make any sense, doesn't it? That sounds kind of opposite. Because, of course, we think of Judas as the traitor, right? The one that took his own life. So we look at life and Judas as Judas was very maybe too focused on self, all right? And they look, well, Charles Fillmore looked at it and said, well, if you want life, if you want that feeling of wholeness, spiritually and physically, then you might have some work to do in letting go of hanging on. Okay? You might have some work to do in letting go of hanging on. Because, yeah, you got it. Say that again. Release. Well, release is close to it. And if you see, it's right above it. that power of release. And when people put down release, yes, the very typical thing is elimination, to let go. But I think underneath that is really the need to forgive. The need to forgive. And so often, it's a need to forgive ourselves. And that will hang you up every time. Yeah.
I think of it as being engaging.
Pardon me?
Engaging.
Engaging?
Yeah, engaging in life.
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, the life, you mean. Yes. So life is, now remember, everything starts within. Okay? So the spiritual power of life is not about your physical life. Okay? It's not about that. It's a knowing that despite anything that's happening out here, okay, I am whole. For I am divine. I am whole. And so you have this spiritual power of life in your very cells, in your muscles, in your bones, in you. Okay? And you call this spiritual power into action, okay? Into you recognizing it. They're always really in action. It's us who fall asleep at the wheel. Okay? So it's to waking ourselves up to this spiritual power of life so that we can express it out here. Okay? So again, but life's going to stay in. You're still going to need another spiritual faculty to put it into action, whether that's will or whether that's power, or zeal. Okay? Although zeal, like love, can be a little wonky. Okay? Anybody think about how zeal can be wonky? Yes, Mark? Excess, right. It's like, yay, it's snowing, and you run outside without your coat on. Okay? So it's zeal. So zeal has to be tempered. We talked earlier, Leah brought up understanding. Okay. For many years on Christmas Eve or the Christmas candle lighting service, you've got an affirmation. And every year with all you're getting, get understanding. And I got that same affirmation for years. And I said, but what do you mean understanding? I read books all the time, right? I go to classes all the time. I'm always getting an understanding. So what could that possibly mean? So let's look at this here. It says comprehension, realization. Realization is not just, I understand. It's having a realization. Not just an understanding. I have a realization that this is true. Insight. And it's where we say, it's where we have knowledge, but we take that knowledge to the next level, where we do get that insight, where we get that realization. So, and that's, doubting Thomas is the apostle. So the other one I want to just briefly talk about is order. Anybody have a sloppy desk? Anybody have one of those drawers where, it's just like, I don't know what to do with this. It's going in that drawer, So at the end you have a drawer of, I don't know what to do with this, Order is not about that. Sorry. Order is not about that. Because what do we say? That these are spiritual powers, right? But do you see how so often we are so compelled by our humanness that even when we look at these powers and know that they're spiritual powers, we look at them with our human eyes and we go, oh, I need order because my house is a mess. No. All things begin within. All things begin within. So even your messy house, your junk drawer, whatever you want to call it, that started within. So the spiritual power of order is about ordering your thoughts. It's ordering your thoughts. Okay. Did you ever try and clean your house and you wish you hadn't? Because once you started it, it's like, it's worse than it was before. Okay. You have to have a plan. So that's ordering your thoughts. That is the spiritual power of order. It's also about the concept of seed, sprout, flower. Okay. There is an orderly process within you and even within the world. We don't get a seed, put the seed in, and then the next day there's a flower, right? There's a process. And so that process also happens within us. So it's divine mind, we get an idea, okay? And then once that idea is formulated in here, then we get to express it out here. So that order is about organization within and also about adjustment. Okay, so that you have a plan. Do you ever have a plan and everybody bought into your plan? And then you discover, that plan is not going to work. But everybody bought into it. Now what do? Adjust. This is that spiritual power of adjustment where you can make an adjustment, change your mind. This is where that comes from. All right? But it's not, what it is not, it's not synchronicity. Okay? Where I'll often hear Unity people say, well, I knew I should do it because I saw a truck going down the street and it had the same word that I've been thinking about. So now I know that it's true. Okay? So that's where are we looking for the source? Outside. Okay? So no, that's synchronicity. It's great when it happens, isn't it? You love it. You love to see all those little connections. Okay? But that's not a divine spiritual power. Okay? And so what most likely is happening in that situation is so much, that word is so much in your thought, in your consciousness, that you're actually looking for it. That truck probably went by 2 billion times before and you never noticed it. So it's not synchronicity. That's what it is not. And it's not about your orderly desk. But it is when you say, I'm confused. Spiritual power of order. That's what you want to call on. When you want to change your mind. Spiritual power of order. When you want to grow spiritually, because it's also about evolution. Just like seed, sprout, flower. When you want to grow, that's the spiritual power of order. So, what I really like you to take away from this is to just play with them. Here's what you can't do. You cannot get it wrong. No bolt of lightning is going to come down. Okay? You can't get it wrong. But you can play with them. And you can even get an idea or get a feeling of them. What would that feel like? What would that be like for you? So that's why we gave you a pencil with an eraser, okay? So that you can play with these and you can change your mind. And you can, let me try this. If I hold this in mind, if I hold this in prayer, how will I feel? Okay? How will I feel more empowered? Because these spiritual powers are not just an idea. These spiritual powers are here to empower you, to help you know that you're in control of your life. So I hope this has helped. Okay. I do want to, say that I'm just going to come back up here. I do want to also, though, recognize that while I can make these things sound simple, okay, I know that they're not always simple to employ. Unity and its teachings are not for those who want to believe that they are weak. If you want to hang on to that thought, it might be a little difficult to employ unity teachings, because the reality is you're not weak. The reality is you're more powerful than you can even imagine. You are much more powerful. But you can't just sit around and want. You need to do. You need to do something. It was Unity teacher and author Eric Butterworth who wrote that never had there been so many people who wanted to transform and rise up, but who didn't want to get personally involved, didn't want to get their hands dirty. So take time this month to truly know who and what you are, for you are God's beloved. You are one with the divine creative process. You are a one-of-a-kind, unique expression of spirit, a one-of-a-kind, true manifestation of divine powers. And your unique light, just like every snowflake that you will see later today or tomorrow, is a unique expression. You too are that unique expression. And you are needed as you in the world right now, today. And so I'm going to leave you with a quote from an author, Andre Lord. You cannot use someone else's fire. You can only use your own. And in order to do that, you must first be willing to believe that you have it. I know that you have it. Namaste.